All right. Welcome back, everybody. Up next, we have Hawkeye Systems, and we have the CEO of Hawkeye, Corby Marshall. I will hand it over to you.
Thank you very much. So I appreciate the opportunity to present today. Hawkeye Systems is we're publicly traded. We're a company that started looking at technology that largely was in the entertainment business, and we have adapted our model to sort of meet with the challenges that the current marketplace has presented us. It is not advancing. Okay. Initially, we set out to acquire technology under the company and which we would commercialize and bring broadly. And it became apparent, as there were some challenges with the acquisition we had in mind, and then also as pandemic sort of took over the soundstage of everything that was going on, that perhaps we should, rather than go long on technology that we weren't necessarily prepared to commercialize and take advantage of, to move to something that was more prescient. And so we have transitioned into looking at, during the COVID-19 process of trading PPE. This is a look at our snapshot of the company's stock price, our market cap and shares outstanding. We've actively been selling masks, gloves, sanitizer, wipes, and identifying what are long-term supply chain opportunities, as well as looking at technologies which are complementary to our initial mission, but some which may be complementary to our future, that as it changes. We've also, as we've been looking for strategic opportunities in technology, we still are very much involved in being able to capitalize on the technology we already licensed, and that we were prepared to commercialize in our previous acquisition attempt. But that's an ongoing effort right now. Previously, we had looked at field of view cameras that could be used by the military for 360 representation of the battlefield for targeting and surveillance. We were able to obtain a CRADA with JSOC. We were able to work with a variety of different organizations in the government and otherwise. And we're looking really at ISR in military, as well as we're able to get some success with Sony in terms of installing this technology in a studio, their soundstage, and actually even some live sporting events. As the pandemic became, as I said, more and more overriding in terms of the volume that played in our narrative, we decided to move to something that was more immediate and could impact and affect positively the cash flow for the company. One of the things that we've learned in the process is that although the opportunities seem limitless, there are some real problems in PPE, especially if you're spot trading, just due to questionable suppliers, questionable supply, questionable quality of products. There's a lot of fraud. And so what we've done, as we've been able to successfully trade PPE, we've been able to successfully transact, is identify some specific areas which we can get further down the supply chain and make an impact that's both sustainable, but also isn't dependent on the pandemic for success. So in other words, things that post-pandemic, the price still works, our ability to compete in a post-pandemic world still works. And we've identified a couple opportunities that we've successfully been able to move that down the road. As I said earlier, there's a lot of fraud, price gouging, all kinds of different issues. Millions, literally hundreds of millions of, for instance, 3M 1860s that were just fake are being moved around the world. And we hear vendors who open boxes and they've shredded paper after they've paid $5 million for these products. And all these things are horrifying if you're involved in either side of the transaction if you don't have it completely in your hands. And especially when the sellers are overseas, customs are overrun. There's been situations where, I mean, we've had shipments that were held in customs for 4 weeks, which is, it's untenable. And so we basically looked at this problem, and we looked at, how do we affect this opportunity in a predictable, safe way to get these products to market. And the solution that we came up with is we found a U.S. manufacturer, Dematec, out of Miami, long-standing medical device manufacturer. They make suture, they make bone wax, they make surgical mesh. And with them, we collaboratively put in place a program where we have own supply of N95s that are now NIOSH approved for a fold and a cup, as well as a surgical three ply that's a ASTM level 3, made in Miami every day, shipped from Miami every day. And we eliminated all the problems of customs. We eliminated the problems of the fraud. We know the quality's there. It's American-made material, so it's very compliant, which allows us to play in roles, for instance, that the DoD or DLA or these large organizations that sometimes require, sometimes, but always prefer an American-made product that has American-made materials. So that's the first of the, segments we've approached and attacked. We've also been very active in the glove business, which right now is it's a good opportunity, but it's again has the same kind of challenges, same kind of issues, and what we found to be more likely than just a fraudulent product, glove-wise, unlike the masks, is that they tend to be spotty quality. There's some that tear a lot. You'll go and, 30% of what we inspect, we have to turn away because it just doesn't pass the tests that even just subjective tests, not, just look at them, you can tell. And so what we've done is we found a manufacturer, somebody we collaborated with on sanitizer, and very successfully. They've been very good at everything from the FDA registrations to all of the different processes involved in that. And we're in the process of finalizing and setting up financing for a dedicated supply chain that we have 5.4 million boxes of our own gloves that we don't have anybody dependent on. We don't have to, so it's sort of our issue, and therefore it's our opportunity. And we've already had very good reception from the vendors we've been working with, we've been selling through and with. And so that's the way that we've approached that specific opportunity. The competitors, honestly, the PPE space is really broad. The large ones that people know about are the medical distributors like Kimberly-Clark, Cardinal, Medline. But there's obviously many, many more. And there's a lot of financial players who've started to hoard gloves, and because the margins in some cases are so extreme. I spoke with a client the other day that had paid as high as $34 a box for nitrile gloves for a box of 100. And frankly, pre-COVID, and so therefore post-COVID, the prices for a box of nitrile gloves, 100 count, was probably around $7 to $8. We expected a return there, and factored into our process and factored into what we're building as an opportunity is a price that has a healthy margin and still can meet that post-pandemic price line. And as I said, there's a lot of issues where you have companies overseas that they got to their limit of what they could produce, and then what ended up happening is they wanted to keep taking the orders, so they would sub out to inferior factories that didn't have the same process, didn't have the same oversight, and in some cases, a lot of those folks were actually arrested. There's two very prominent companies in Vietnam that several dozen people were arrested because of these kinds of things, because they took what was approved and agreed by the FDA and by different regulatory organizations, and then they took advantage because there was such demand, and there still is. So, the management, my background has been, most recently I was the CEO of Hilltop Cybersecurity. I've worked in the technology industry and have worked in various aspects of healthcare as well. I've recently been joined by Chris Mulgrew, who has a background that has been very helpful to me, and he has a broad experience as a CFO, both on a full-time basis and also as a hired gun and a consultant to various public companies. And so he's really added a lot to the team, and which helps us, sort of continue to build a robust, sustainable company that can meet our regulatory requirements and move the company forward. In conclusion here, we are generating revenue via PPE sales. We have plans to move towards a sustainable long-term model in PPE, but we continue to evaluate opportunities that are strategic in nature, that are either in our hands already, just based on things that we've already licensed, and then we just have to sort out what are the details of that, as well as we are approached and have met with and dealt with several companies that have tech which we think are complementary to our mission and to the reach that we have in our customer base. So let me see timing wise. So I'm done a little bit early. I wanted to let me open up for questions. If anybody has any that I can answer, I'd be glad to. Let me just take a minute while I don't see any questions at this point, but one of the things that we found in working in the PPE space is that there's a disparity in terms of what perception is about the availability of products and the reality of it, and the dynamics of the market as it relates to, for instance, gloves, very different than we expected. There's some really great opportunity within that, but for example, when the Strategic National Stockpile was opened up to look at like how many gloves there were, for instance, that was were there to support the nation. There was only 1 million boxes, and 1 million boxes, there's certain hospital systems in the country that can use 1 million boxes in a year. So we think that the tail of PPE sales and the tail of, if tomorrow the vaccines work spectacularly and there was no COVID, et cetera, I still believe, based on the information that we've garnered and what we've seen, that there's still a 16, 18-month tail where there's still going to be tremendous demand for products, and frankly, it'll be above the stabilized price that we're working towards, which is the $7 to $8 a box. So, and I think that's going to be true of multiple product lines, and then I think we're also going to see a new paradigm that COVID has kind of created, which is that I think our country has never historically been prepared for these kind of things, and I think we'll see more stockpiling, more cognizance in just the American home of having masks and gloves and these kind of things that we've never done as a rule. There's Asian countries that were more affected by SARS initially, and MRSA that probably have more of that into their culture. But I think that's going to change, and I think that's another thing that's going to continue to make this a good opportunity in terms of the space. Are there any other questions? Anything I can answer? Okay. Well, I will be available if anyone has any questions during the this event or afterwards. Be glad to address anything, any questions about the company or otherwise. And I appreciate everyone's time today and being here for this event. Thank you and have a great day.
All right. Thank you, Corby. Have a good one.
All right, thanks.